welcome to this week's conversation, or this week's version of In Conversation with Joseph Conlan, musical composer from LA in America. Joseph, thank you very much for coming in and
for flying all the way over to Ireland to do this.
Yeah. We paid for him to fly over, and we spent most of that money on Guinness. But no, seriously, thank you very much for doing this with us. How are you finding Galway so far?
Love Galway. I think this is the 5th FLA that I've been to, and I just absolutely love it. It's small. It's smaller than Dublin, and it's smaller than LA by all means. But there's just a quaintness to Galway that I absolutely love, and I absolutely love the focus on arts here, whether it's film or arts in general. It's just seems to be so much enthusiasm for all of that it just, I don't know, it's inspiring.
Yeah, it almost kind of oozes out of the actual town itself.
It's like every corner you turn. But in going to the opening last night to hear, I've forgotten the woman's name that heads up the Galway Film FLA, but just to hear her passion for it, and everybody, and Gar when he got up, to hear his passion, that's just representative, I think, of what I see and hear and when I'm in Galway, and it's I don't know what it is, but there's something very special about it here.
And what brought you to your first FLA? What was your?
I can almost remember his name, Gordon Gaffney, with what's on Curb Street in Dublin, the film
base.
Film base.
Mm-hmm.
I went in there several years ago, and I somehow got introduced to him, and we sat down and talked, and I was talking about the fact that I was meeting more and more filmmakers in Dublin at that particular point, and he recommended coming to the Galway Film FLA, and so I checked into it the following year, and then decided to go, and I've been coming ever since. As a matter of fact, I'm spending less time in Dublin now because of it. I'm spending more time, most of my time in Galway.
Tell us a bit about growing up in America.
Growing up in America.
I know,
Okay.
What a general question.
That's such a broad question.
Where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh
wow.
Yeah. Amazing. And I got out when I was 5 years old. I say got out because I know I have a number of friends in LA who didn't get out early enough. No, I'm just kidding about that, but they're different people.
Yeah.
I would have been a different person, obviously. We'd all be different people if we'd made fundamental changes like that. But so my family moved to Los Angeles, and I grew up there, was influenced by various sorts of things, took piano lessons when I was a kid, and so on and so forth. And at some point, a change in piano teachers somehow got me on a path for writing music as opposed to just playing music. And so that was kind of the impetus to where I'm at now. That was the beginning of it all and led to where I'm at now in Galway. Anyway, it's led to a very long career, and I'm very, very fortunate to have had something like that because it's not very common. But so it was piano lessons, and it was writing songs and so on and so forth, and then getting into college and actually deciding that instead of pursuing the law career that my mother was influencing me to go that particular path, I realized that this thing that I'd been doing for such a long time by that point was something that I should actually turn into my focus. And I was optimistic and ignorant enough to think that I could actually do this. And so I did it. I think if I'd been maybe a little bit more, I don't know, if I maybe was a little bit more of the odds, I think that if I paid attention to that, I probably would have maybe taken another path. But I wasn't that bright.
So do you think if you weren't a composer now that you would have went into law?
Who knows where I would have gone? I ultimately liked in some of this other studies that I took in college. Psychology was kind of a thing. I really like delving into that, but I don't know if that would have been my path.
Yeah.
I just consider myself to be one of the luckiest people on earth, because it's a passion with me, and I just absolutely love what I do.
And what do you love about it?
It's that creative process. It's about writing music, but it's also about writing music for film. So there's a difference. To write music for its own self, that's a great thing. But I somehow love being inspired by the images on film, whatever they might be. So that's really kind of that's a different. It's a different passion somehow than just writing for music for its own sake. But there's just something about coming up with harmonic progressions and melodic content that just sends me. It's hard to explain that, I guess. But yeah.
I think that's generally how it is for most people when they have a passion like that. It's so hard to explain.
It
but
is.
In your head,
Any art.
It makes complete sense.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's just something that comes over me. It's just like, I'm so glad I'm sitting here doing this, and it's so different nowadays than when it was when I started. I started so long ago. I sat at a piano with a pad of score paper and a pencil, and at those days, my scene notes from the film that I was doing, the television show I was doing. And, I would work it all out sitting at the piano. Nowadays, it's an array of computers and all networked and with such incredibly well done sound libraries, whether it's orchestral or synthetic in nature or percussive in nature or whatever it is. The quality of these libraries is such that in most cases, I think most people could not tell the difference between which is a good and a bad point, but whether it's an orchestra or an orchestra in a box, as I call it. Most of the work that I did was for orchestra, and from time to time nowadays I will be able to stand in front of an orchestra. But budgets and technology has really influenced the business to the point where most everything now is done, in this kind of situation, and you might have a handful of players that will come in and play, whether it's some woodwind players or some rhythm section guys, guitar guys, or whatever. It's that sort of it's kind of moved into that thing. But it's the good and bad of it is that one, it's too bad that we can't involve an orchestra in a lot of these particular scores and in these sorts of situations. But the good part of it is that the expression that when you have a palette the size that most of us have, sitting in our room by ourselves where we can experiment forever, depending on what the deadlines or restraints are, but we can go on and on and on and find things that we would have never found before. I've found voices, I've found combinations of instruments and sounds and so on that get me even more excited about what I do, just because of its availability. Not the case 10, 15, 20 years ago. Just not there. So, anyway.
Which is a relatively short time period.
It is, yeah.
For that.
It is, yeah.
And it's always changing as well.
Yeah.
It's just going to keep,
yeah.
in the next 10, 15
and it's just
years,
a matter
where's it going to be at then?
Exactly, and it's just a matter of having the aptitude and the interest to stay on top of it and stay
Adapt.
aware of and adapt. Exactly. Yeah.
What do you find is, I suppose, the most challenging thing about the life of a music composer, especially when you are in such a competitive environment as LA?
It's the most challenging. I would say a couple of things come to mind. The most challenging is probably communicating with a director and trying to understand what his direction is, what his ideas are, what his concern is for the film in terms of the storytelling. And not a lot of directors really know what they're looking for. A lot do know what they're looking for, and are very good at explaining that, and that makes it a lot easier. But it's the directors who need some help, and it's a bit of trying to take their words and interpret them into something that you feel is right for the picture, and then going through the process of sketching things, presenting them, and then finding out that I'm a genius or I'm out of my mind. It's one or the other, or it really couldn't be anything in between. Yes, it's close, but it's not quite right. And then it's a matter of trying. The challenge is then trying to get them to find the words that point to exactly what's wrong. Because that'll have you go, okay, now I know. Yeah. Because I've been in situations where I've written a 5-minute cue, and it was the 4-measure oboe phrase in the middle of it that made the director say, "It sounds nice, but I really think you should try it again." And it's just like, it's a 5-minute cue. You really didn't like any of the 5-minute cue? Well, I like parts of it. Well, and then it was a matter. It tends to be a matter of then weeding through and saying, "Oh no, I liked all of that up until," and then you find out it's just he didn't like the sound of the oboe. And so, what if we change it to a flute? What if we change it to a guitar? What if we change it to a piano? Try it out. All of a sudden, I don't have to rewrite that 5-minute scene anymore. So anyway, that's probably the more difficult, challenging one particular thing. The other part of it is the other challenging thing is about getting indoors, about getting to meet people and that you haven't worked with before, and to show them your ability, your talent, your focus, and to get them to realize that maybe you could have a lot of good things to say about their particular film and could heighten the dramatic values in a way that they would be very excited about. And so it's a matter of getting to the point where you can have that dialogue with those people, because in a lot of cases, time is really the biggest culprit in trying to convince people, because in a lot of cases they just don't have the time, and they're being hit by an awful lot of other people they're trying to be convinced. They're trying to convince with that same idea. It's just like I'm the guy, and it's really, how do you get their attention? How do you get their time? And
how do you? And especially somewhere like LA, where
it's crazy. It really is crazy. Having a good agent is a real advantage, and I happen to have a very good agent, and he's done very nice things for me. But then a lot of it too is a personal contact between you and the director, you and a producer, having nothing to do with it. Because a lot of directors and producers don't want to know anything about an agent. They're very focused on the music, and so it's a matter of finding those people, and it's difficult because, like you say, in LA, it's pretty broad. It's pretty broad here in Ireland. You have a lot of talented filmmakers here in Ireland, and I've had a chance to work with a number of these people, and they're very focused on what they need, what they want for their particular film. So it's just a matter of finding them and trying to get an audience with them, and that's why I come to Galway, because it's just that sort of arena. It's we're all kind of standing around talking, and you'll find your moment or you won't, or you're going to totally offend somebody, or they're just not going to like you for whatever reason. Look at the guy's hair. How can he possibly think that he could be taken seriously with hair like that? That's
for all our listeners out there. Joseph has incredible hair. I didn't want to comment on it because you're bringing it up.
There you go. Well, thank you very much for that.
It's glorious. It's glorious.
Glorious hair.
Glorious.
Not just good-looking hair. It's glorious hair. Anyway, but that's the thing. But it's the case, I think, with any, with being an actress. It's just like, or an actor.
Actress
Is it a
is fine.
derogatory? Okay,
No,
great.
actress is fine.
Depends on who you're with. But yeah, I mean, to get that point, it's not just about an audition. It's just like to get in front of a director. It's just like, and they don't even have a project, and then maybe 6 months down the line, they remember you and they've got a project.
Yeah.
Kate would just be fantastic for that. And so, but you're possibly here at Galway doing the same thing I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe you too, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
He has to figure out what he is yet.
I need to figure out what I am. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, I think. So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, sometimes that's the
I'll
way to
get
be.
there in the end, I hope. But yeah, what do you think makes a good composer?
Yeah.
Broad question.
Well, using yourself as an example.
What makes a good artist? It's just like you've got a black canvas painted black with a little red dot in the upper right-hand corner. It's just like, is that genius or is that just really? Is the guy cruising? It's just like, is that really something? It's beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and really, I think it is such an incredibly subjective thing. Music, graphic art, whatever, an actor's performance. It's all subjective. So, what makes a good composer? I don't really know.
What abilities do you have that lend themselves well?
I'm
to what you do?
incredibly inventive, and I say that facetiously. I am, but I mean, I was trying to press for a joke there. But I am completely committed to a project once I sign on, and
Is that
as committed to very small projects as I am to very large projects, and there's a lot of time that's taken in trying to find the right voice and trying to find the right melodic phrase or sound or identification. Somehow there's an identification that comes with music, and it can be melodic, it can be harmonic, it can be something completely out of left field and something that you may not even associate with music, and it's an audible identification that you can thread in to films in particular and have it mean something, have it take that dramatic value, whatever it is, and raise it.
When you say that you're committed to projects and stuff like that, do you find yourself doing numerous projects all at the same time, or do you generally say, I do one, commit myself to that one, do it, and then go to the next?
Commitment in terms of how right I want the score to be, how much I want to feel satisfied with my own creation. Okay, that's the commitment. Because I've been involved in 3 projects at the same time, and it's
Draining.
Crazy, can be absolutely nuts, and but none have suffered because there were numerous things, because there were overlaps, and they tend to be projects. It's like I cannot say no to that project. I've said no to many projects, but I mean, certain projects come along and the timing is just bad, but you just can't say no to it.
And what is it about projects that make you say yes?
It can be a million things. I mean, it can be the actors, it can be the people that are doing the project, it can just be the story. I think there's an adage, something about it's money, the project itself, the story, and then the political connections of people that are actually doing it, and you decide out of those 3 things if you pick 2. So if maybe the money's not great, but the story's great and the connections are great, you go with that. Or if the money's there and maybe the political content, story's not great, you still go for it. So it's kind of that thing. It's really gotten down to pick one. If any one of those things is present, go for it. But I mean, it really, a lot of times it has more to do nowadays with the story itself, and then also the people that are putting it together.
Did you ever consider giving up?
No, God, no. I'm having way too much fun. I really am. And
At what age did you start? And what age did you say yes?
My first gig was, I started writing I was ghosting for another composer, which happens. Ghosting was the same thing with writing a book or something. There's a ghost writer. The guy gets his name on there, but really was somebody else that filled in these huge blanks and wrote the book. Same thing with scores, and especially in television, where in Los Angeles, there are a lot of composers that are extremely busy, and because they have a lot of popular television shows, they're very visible. And back then, when I was first starting, there were a couple of composers that were very visible, and I got introduced to them, and I ended up writing some material for their various television shows. So that's how I got started. What was the question? I forgot.
Just roughly around what age or what?
I was 25 years old. 25 years old when I first wrote my first bit for film, and it was for well, I can't say that for film, but for something that was serious. It was a television show called San Pedro Beach Bums. Very short-lived show, by the way. But it led to a relationship with a composer that led to doing shows like Starsky and Hutch and Heart to Heart and so on and so forth. So it was a great relationship, great learning situation, and so on. And then eventually led to Simon and Simon, which was my first notable achievement. So with my name on the screen, so that was a big deal. So
anyway. How many seasons of that was it?
Simon and Simon went on, I think, for 7 or 8 seasons, and I did the first 6. And because I was getting calls from different directions, I decided to leave the series, and it was the right choice for me to do it. That particular, but the show ended a couple of years later, So yeah, so I was very lucky, and I still maintain that I'm absolutely one of the luckiest guys in the world. Whether it's a big production or a small production, I just love what I do, and it's looking at that film and coming up with some sort of musical comment. That's it's just a very, very fun place to be.
Having been over here quite a bit, and obviously living in America, what would you say are the main differences between the American film industry and the Irish film industry?
I don't know. I don't know what I don't know.
Is there anything that even strikes you immediately that you would say, well, God, it's not how it works over there, or it's not how it works over here, or...
No, I don't know. It's because my association in LA has been along a grander scale, and I don't have those relationships over here. I mean, I have relationships with people who produce lower profile projects here. So I can't compare. It's apples and oranges kind of a deal. Yeah. My enthusiasm for the work is no different, though. I've had the chance of meeting Ed Guiney and speaking to him for a couple of, for a few minutes, here and there, a couple of different times, and from what I understand, it's one of the larger companies, one of the largest company, I think, film production-wise here on the island. And I see the projects they come up with, and it's just like fabulous and innovative sorts of projects, and I would just love, to be associated with these things. You can edit all this out if you want, but
no,
but it's just one of those situations where I haven't gotten to this stage. My relationships haven't gotten to the point where I can work at that particular level. But again, I'm not certain that it. In fact, I'm clear. I know absolutely it would not be any difference. There would not be any difference in terms of my enthusiasm, my creativity, because as I say, it all just comes down to the film. So to answer your question, I just don't know what the answer is. I can't, because I don't have the same relationships, the same sort of relationships.
Well, then, given your experiences from working in Ireland, I suppose in Dublin and Galway and everywhere, would you ever consider moving over here?
I have, as a matter of fact. I've thought many times about having a place and coming over and spending even more time here, but it just hasn't happened for whatever reason yet. Yeah, it hasn't happened yet. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You speak about relationships and building relationships. Is there a shorthand that develops the more you work with somebody
Sure.
that makes it easier to?
Sure. There's a very talented director that I've begun to work with in the past couple of years named Graham Cantwell, and did a romantic comedy for him last year called The Callback Queen, and it was just an absolute delight to do because of the film, top of the list. But then in dealing with Graham, as we did this long distance, and that's something that also has changed technologically. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. The only thing you have to pay attention to is the time zone. Whereas most of my conversations with him were relatively early in the morning for me and kind of late in the afternoon for him, or it might shift where it was early in the afternoon or late in the evening for him. But the relationship that we created at that particular point has, grown, and so I've been involved with him on a couple of other projects that I'm very excited about. I know he's ecstatic about, and but he's just somebody that I've grown to like personally as well, and so it's just one of these things where now we're just feeding off each other somehow, and it's just really a great place to be. But that tends to be the situation. I get involved with. I mean, not everybody that I worked for am I excited about, but personally, but in most cases I find something that I can get excited about personally. But anyway, and I've gotten to know Amy as well, very well, and it's just a love fest, as they would say in Hollywood. God, I really wish I hadn't said that.
It's okay.
So you can edit that out if you
No,
like.
it's okay.
No, again, it's so much better if we just don't edit anything.
We just don't edit anything.
No, add nothing at all.
All the warts.
I'm interested to know, again, from a composer's point of view, like, what bands do you listen to?
Oh gosh, I have been listening very much to Atoms for Peace, which is Radiohead guy,
Johnny Greenwood?
Tom York.
Oh, Tom York.
Yeah, and I've listened to Radiohead for quite some time, and but I listen to a lot of different things, pretty eclectic things, and of course the names of these bands and so on. They're because they're so eclectic, they tend not to stay in my mind, in my memory very long. But I tend to listen to a lot of different sorts of things. I listen to a lot of different film scores too from composers that are coming a little out of left field. I think that's the excitement. That's the excitement about writing music, because you can, as I said before, you can write anything. I mean, whether they like it or not is a different story. And that's also part of the job. It's, okay, they got to like it too. But to suggest things that are out of left field is fun. It's just like to be able to say, how about this over here? And if they like it, great. If I had played it safe and done something and suggesting something that was, so much a sure thing, pretty much a sure thing, and they would have accepted it, it would have been okay, fine, great. But I wouldn't have found any advancement in that.
No enjoyment in it either.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the enjoyment comes from, is trying new things. And I think any artist, whether again they're a writer, they're an actor, they're a painter, or whatever, they want to, expand their boundaries. And I absolutely love doing that. And I get inspiration from artists like Tom York and the like. I mean, I just live listening to these people, and I don't love everything that they do, but I get inspired by certain sounds that they come up with, and it's like, how did they do that? And then I will research it, I will talk, I will figure it out, I'll play around, and I'll find this new tool or a new color for the palette, and it's really just really kind of corny and exciting at the same time.
Was there any watershed moment for yourself where you said, you sat down and you watched, I don't know, Psycho or something like that, and you went?
There have been a number of scores. Ennio Morricone, but mostly having to do with composers. Ennio Morricone has been a big influence of mine. Jerry Goldsmith was a big influence of mine. John Powell was a big influence of mine. And most recent, he's the most recent, the Bourne Identity trilogy that he dealt with. There's a fourth picture, but he didn't write that picture. He was one of those guys where when I listened to it, and I heard certain sound elements that were in there, musical sound elements that were in there. That was one of those moments. What is that? Where did that? How did he get to that? And after studying it and playing around with it and talking to other people, I figured it out. And so some of those elements become a part of my palette, and keep expanding those boundaries and so on. So it's more watershed influences in the form of various composers that have existed through time. So,
is there anybody that's been your biggest influence? Doesn't have to be famous or anything.
All of those names, those particular film names, and the Beatles were probably the biggest influence, I guess, and the most earliest influence.
Yeah.
Now that I think back, yeah. And and more recently, Tom York and a myriad of other names. I think that's the thing about being an artist, and any form of an artist, is to be open to new things and never be closed off, and always be learning and always be experimenting and always be going into some sort of weird area that you're not comfortable in, and just try it out and see if you can make it comfortable. And that's what I really enjoy the most about all of this.
And aside then from like musical inspirations or influences, what else inspires you, or what else excites you, or
You know what? It's funny. I mean, I have a wonderful relationship with my family. I have so many great friends, and I also pay a lot of attention to staying as physically fit as I can possibly be, because I don't want to get old. I just want this to continue. And it's really kind of a funny thing. So those are my focuses, really. My family and friends, and my physicality and my health. Those are all things that I pay an awful lot of attention to. And there's really not a lot of time left in my life, for other focuses. I could be fractured and probably get into a lot of other different things. And I've considered other things. I mean, my wife is also a very good photographer, and I get inspired by what she's done photographically. She's also a wonderful painter, and I see some of the things that she does, and I just kind of go, where did that come from? And it's just astounding. And so I start to picture myself trying to convey some creative idea in those veins, and I think about it for a little bit, and then I decide not to do it. I do that with cooking too. I'll watch these cooking shows and go, God, that looks like it would taste just fantastic, and get very inspired by the chef that's Bobby Flay. It's just like he's just going on about it, and you just like him, and you like what he's doing, and then you think, I've got to pursue that. And then 5 minutes later, it's just like, shrug. Nah.
The order taken.
So anyway, but the principal focuses are always there. And as far as music is the love of my life, and I can't imagine anything else being threatening that, or taking really any kind of serious time from that at all.
Going back to keeping fit, a great way of keeping fit in Ireland is by playing the game of hurling. And we had a slight conversation about it.
Yes, we did.
Your views on the game?
I think it's fascinating, and I haven't seen enough of it to. But however, I was at a pub just this afternoon, and they were talking about some of the matches that have just been going on recently. Mm-hmm. Tipperary, I think, and I'm not sure who else, but that's just...
Yeah, you may as well say we're here.
All right, okay, great. I'm sorry that
that's
I didn't...
That's why they are talking about it. It was...
All right, great. Well, but nothing is specifically about the match, who was better or worse or anything, I think, but just the enthusiasm for it. It was just like...
Kate is holding back the answer on her lips. Like, who is better or worse?
Okay.
I can see it in her. She's like, we know the answer to that question, but we won't go there.
But it is such a localized, from what my understanding is, I could be wrong, but it's such a localized sport, the GAA. it's really just Ireland. I mean, from what I understand.
Well, there are. I mean, it is in New York and it's in Australia.
Yeah,
as well
and there
because
is
of the huge Irish contingent there, but it is mainly an Irish team.
And they actually have teams in LA as well
In
that
LA,
I found out about. But there's no publicity about it. You really do have to search for things going on and what could the quality of the play be. I don't know. It could be great. But and I know I have some from older Irish friends that they all seem to run pubs in LA somewhere, and they used to play when they were much younger. These are much older guys, and we were talking a little bit about this. And I remember one particular fellow who's such a character, but we were kind of not really comparing, but somehow the two sports came up, hurling and lacrosse. And he just kind of rolled his eyes. He said, my grandmother could play lacrosse. So, and I just thought, that's interesting. But then that's when I found out that the hurley is flat. There's no little divot in there where the ball can, the slither can sit.
You can just hold
there's no advantage at all. It is a plank, and it is like, learn how to deal with it.
It is literally just a case of at the age of 3 or 4, you're given a hurley, you're given a slither, and just told, just
go kill people.
Yeah. But it is just, there's no real formal training to it. It is just like, you've got to pretty much learn this yourself.
Wow.
Go do it.
But I find it fascinating, and and also it's amazing to me that they don't have any protection. There's no headgear.
Well, no, there is now. Everyone,
it's
it's been brought in that they have to wear a helmet.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that just recently?
Within the
about
last
15 years?
3 or 4 years. Remember,
Really?
John Milan for Watford used to never wear his helmet, but it was brought in that he had to. And
Really? That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So
Well, I think it's fine.
A number of people would say that they don't want to wear the helmet because it'll actually block their vision
Sure.
of what's going on. But for safety purposes, I mean,
Yeah.
People see what happens in matches and stuff like that. And if a high ball comes in, that ball hits you on the head, or if somebody comes in with a hurley and hits you, anything could happen. So
But
it's necessary now to.
Well, it makes sense.
Oh, it does make
it makes sense.
But
And
that's about it then. That's about it for protection. I mean, you can get a hurley.
But there's no
glove.
shoulder pads or
No.
any of that kind of stuff. Okay, all right. Well, yeah, the NFL is they're going through a time right now where they've been. There's all these class action suits. I believe they're class action suits, but having to do with what situations the players were put in, and maybe convinced to be in, where maybe it was false information they were being given. They were being assured that they were fine when really they were not, and having to do with concussions, having to do with limbs, joints, and so on. This is all being sorted out now. I don't know what any decisions
Is
are.
this with every team in the?
Well,
the
there's
NFL,
more
or
and more people are piling on, pro players, pro players that are, yes, I was told this, and now I've, it turns out 10 years later, 15 years later, I've got this condition, and it could very well be attributable to this. It's all being sorted out now. I don't know what what will eventually be the result of all of that, but that's the discussion that's going on right now. So for the hurling, for the GAA to introduce these sorts of things, it's probably a good thing. I mean, it's
most definitely a good thing. Yeah. Just safety.
But that was the thing that struck me the most when I first saw a match in, I think it was 2009. I was here, and I happened to go to somebody's house, and they had a match on, and I had heard about it, but I'd never seen even any video and I just was like mesmerized by watching these, and the fact that nobody was really getting whacked regularly on the pitch. It was just like, look at that. He didn't get hit by that. With the hurley coming around. He did,
but he's just not. He's just not feigning
he doesn't,
injury about it.
He doesn't know that he did.
Just get up and get on with it. I think what it is the fact that when we start off at the ages of like 3 and 4, when we start playing it, I mean, we have no idea what other sports are around the world, so we just start playing.
Interesting.
It and just go,
that's what you do.
It's commonplace. That's everybody does that. No, not everybody does that. Ireland does that. Nobody else does it.
Wow.
So that when we grow up and we start playing the game, and we go to places like Ireland or Spain or England, and they see these things and they go, "What is this? It's just murder on the pitch." And we're going, No, it's not. It's just normal.
It's just what you do.
It's just what you do. Yeah, you just get on with it, like, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I find it fascinating. I absolutely love it. I have not seen enough of it, and so maybe hopefully this weekend, maybe I think somebody told me was
There's
something was going
a
on.
very, very big match on. Limerick and Cork are playing in the Munster final.
Okay.
And Tipperary are playing some game at some stage. Anyway, let's move on.
All right.
Let's get back to the music.
Your proudest moment.
Yes.
My proudest moment?
Yes.
Oh, geez. Probably when my kids were born. I would imagine. But
many
if
kids
you
do you have?
mean musically, that's you know.
How many kids do
I've
you
got two.
You've two.
I've got my son Ryan and my daughter Holly, and they're both very creative people on their own.
Your daughter Holly is a singer in her own.
Holly is a singer-songwriter, and she might have been more influenced in that direction by me than my son was. But I believe that there was that creative foundation that both Lynn and I had, that they both were subject to and influenced by. And so yes, so Holly Conlan is a singer-songwriter and has had several albums out, three albums out. And she's going down that path and struggling down that path. And my son is, as I say, was more graphic art influenced, and ultimately works with internet companies. Works for a company right now called Bandpage.com, based in San Francisco, and he is integrally involved in their graphic presence online, and it's fun to see. And he's influenced me as far as my own website is concerned, and so on. And it's a fun thing. That is a fun thing right there. That is a fun thing where maybe I was inspirational at some point during their formative years, but then as they have become adults, or even before, that they might make some sort of creative comment that I'm inspired by, and that is a fun thing, and a fun realization when you realize that that's what's happening. It's just like, I like their choice there, and maybe I should reconsider something. I take that into consideration next time I'm in a relative position somehow. It is a little weird, and maybe that's the circle. I don't know, but it's fun. It's awfully fun. So, but anyway, my having a family and and all that comes with that is really it's a very prolonged proud moment. So
on the other end of the scale, your biggest mistake?
No, that would be too obvious. Going for the joke. No, I can't do that. Biggest mistake.
Or even regret. Is there anything that comes to mind that you go...
It's funny. I've been asked that before, or I've thought about that before, and I think I've been pretty fortunate to either not have had an instance that I can call my biggest regret, or it's the revisionist historian in myself that somehow qualifies those things or rewrites those things so where they don't exist anymore. That's not really quite the way it really was, but that's not the way I remember it. So I can't answer that. I don't know that I really had a biggest. There's probably a biggest regret in there somewhere, but it's really nothing. Not taking up hurling. Yeah.
It's up there.
No,
it's gotta be. It's got to be up there on the list.
We'll call it. Let's go with that.
We'll go. Yeah. It's up there on the list. Is there anybody you'd like to work with in particular? Again, I know this goes back to your influences, but is there anybody, even any director out there?
If there are directors that I would really love to work with. There are directors that I work with currently that I do absolutely love working with, but I can't. There are too many. There are too many directors. It's about directors. It's about directors and filmmakers, and to see their work and to see, large or small, whatever the work is, to see what they've been able to get on film, and to and it's hard because when I see their work on film, it's already being commented on by another composer, good or bad, and in a lot of those cases, they're just fine. It's just great.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of wrong or right. It's just different. I would probably support that scene differently than they did. Not that it's, again, right or wrong. It's just different. That's all. But Ridley Scott is probably, and as controversial as he might be in terms of some of the work that he's done, is probably a guy that I've really been inspired by visually. And
Have you met him?
I met him on 2 occasions, very brief, sorts of things in Los Angeles. But Blade Runner was, such such an event to see that movie. Went in to see the movie the day it opened in the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood at, I think it was like 2:00 in the afternoon, or maybe it was earlier. Went with a musician friend of mine. 2 hours later, walked out of the darkened theater into broad daylight, and the movie is principally in the dark, except for the very end, where they're driving, in some sort of mountainous area, and it's daylight. That was such a shocking thing in the storytelling. Everything else otherwise was in the dark, basically, in Los Angeles, and it was a very depressing sort of circumstance. But for my friend and I to walk out of the theater into broad daylight, it was a strange moment, and stuck with me for hours. I mean, that movie stuck with me for a long time, that particular day. Anyway, so it was fairly momentous, and not to mention the composer, Vangelis, or I've forgotten now which is the proper pronunciation, Vangelis or Vangelis. I think it's Vangelis. Anyway, his score was so inspired and so on. It was just he was also somebody that was inspiring to me as I was going through the process. But anyway, yeah.
Is there anything that you're working on at the moment?
No, not right now. I'm working on furthering my connections in Ireland by being here, and also having fun with the friends that I already have here.
That's pretty easy. Just hang by the bar and
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden there's a bunch more people there, and if they weren't your friends already, it just happened to me this afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Do you have any future ambitions?
Not really. I mean, it's just a matter of just getting better at what I do and honing what I've been doing for the past however many decades that I'll just leave undisclosed at this particular point. But it's just a matter of honing my craft, and that's where the excitement is, and that's where that perpetuation comes from. It just kind of happens on its own because I'm so interested in expanding the palette and expanding my use of that palette and expression, and again how it relates to film. And it's just been this growth for my whole career, and I just look forward to being able to do more and more.
Great. Joseph, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank
This
you
was
very,
fun.
very
This is
much.
very
Thank
fun.
you.
This is
Thank
fun.
you.